Shamangelic Healing podcast is designed as a platform to share authentic conversations about real life issues, providing you with valuable resources and tools to support you in shining your most authentic self, creating a thriving life that you absolutely love, and to support you in manifesting your soul's mission. Hey, this is Anahata Ananda inviting you to another podcast of the Shamangelic Healing podcast. Today we are going to dive into Shamanic Wisdom Teachings and different ways in which you can access shamanic wisdom, nature wisdom teachers, animal spirit guides, to really help guide you through everyday experiences in life. So we're going to dive in with my guest, Ryin Cornett. And I hope that you just have so much fun. There's some free gifts shared with you with the links included with this podcast, so be sure to check those out. If you loved this podcast, if you really find some real pearls, please like it, share us, and give us a great review. And let's dive into this podcast. It's so juicy. I'm so excited to share it with you. Hello, welcome to Shamangelic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Anahata Ananda, and this is my dear soul brother, Ryin Cornett, and we are going to dive into Shamanic Wisdom Teachings, and I'm so grateful to have you back on the podcast, and it's just so much fun. We have so much fun with this topic, and I appreciate you coming today in Sedona. So we're actually recording here in Sedona, and it's snowing, which is such a beautiful expression of nature. So welcome back.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to jump into this topic.
Yeah.
The first time I visited, you took me out on the land, and I was so eager to get to the destination. I was asking, where are we going? Where's the destination? And you would slow me down, and you would start to say, take a deep breath. Listen to the wind, observe the animals that are crossing the path. And I'll never forget, we were rounding a corner and there was this ledge that was pretty steep, and a black crow flew by.
Yeah.
And you told me, you said, hold on, stop, slow down. You said, we both need to put our shoes on. You said, do you have a hat? Let's go ahead and put on our hat right now. The sun's blistering down. Let's be cautious and take our time. It was so profound to me that you observed this animal flying by, and from that you received a message that was guiding us to be a little more cautious as we moved forward to our destination. And so I think that leads us perfectly into these shamanic teachings. How do we observe these beautiful teachings and open ourselves to these so that we can understand and receive these messages?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And that day was so great because I think we tend to just go through everyday life not paying attention to the messages and the messengers that are happening all over the place, whether that's from a mountain or in that case a crow, or what's happening with the elements, what is happening with a tree, and how we, if we're in this place of curiosity and openness and receptivity, that we can receive guidance, support, encouragement, courage, love, wisdom, if there is this willingness and openness to listen and to receive it. And I loved how shamanic teachings came into my life from a place of kind of a deep pain and disconnection from all that is, and these kind of, the shamanic way and the shamanic lens just has been such a beautiful guide of how to be more connected and be more aware. And I want to share, and I shared with you that day, this prayer, and this is the Lakota Sioux Indian Prayer, and it's called Aho Mitakuye Oyasin. And there's many ways of saying that, and if you're listening or watching, this is going to be a free gift. I'm going to make sure that you get a copy of this, so you can sit with this. And so I just invite you to kind of sit back a little bit and receive and see where and how this prayer lands with you. Aho Mitakuye Oyasin. To all my relations, I honor you in this circle of life with me today. I'm grateful for this opportunity to acknowledge you in this prayer. To the Creator for the ultimate gift of life, I thank you. To the mineral nation that has built and maintains my bones and all foundations of life experiences, I thank you. To the plant nation that sustains my organs and my body and gives me healing herbs for sickness, I thank you. To the animal nation that feeds me from your flesh and offers me loyal companionship in this life, I thank you. To the human nation that shares my path as a soul upon this sacred wheel of life, I thank you. To the spirit nation that guides me invisibly through the ups and downs of life and for carrying the torch of light through the ages, I thank you. To the four winds of change and growth, I thank you. For you are all my relations, without whom I would not be alive. We are in the circle of life, together, coexisting, codependent, co-creating our destiny together. One not more important than the other. One nation evolving from the other, and yet each dependent on the one above and the one below. All part of this great mystery. Thank you for this life. Aho Mitakuye Oyasin. And I love that prayer because it expresses a deep level of gratitude that I think in modern society we forget that without the sun rising, without the minerals building our bones, without the animals, the bees pollinating the plants, we don't live. Without the trees exhaling, we don't have oxygen. And our basic life is dependent on all of these things that in essence we're related to in this circle and connected to this in this circle of life. So what about that landed with you the first time, or maybe differently this time? What really resonates with you about that prayer?
I think of this hierarchy where instead of us looking down on animals or plants and trying to dominate them, instead it talks about that wheel and how these elements make up our bones, these minerals make up our bones, these plants nourish our organs, these animals give us companionship and nourishment, and instead of us trying to domineer and be aggressive towards that, it's like, how do we live in harmony amongst these other beautiful creations? And where's the symbiotic relationship that we can develop from that? It's beautiful. And it's a gratitude prayer, like you said.
It's a gratitude prayer after every statement. I thank you. And I think these days we're just taking so much for granted. Fresh air and food and companionship and nourishment and nature. We take it so much for granted, and I think one of the things about the Native traditions that I don't think I was really raised with so much, and not as many people were raised with so much, is expressing gratitude for everything. We're so fabulous at bitching and complaining about, I can't find my charger. Like, okay, how about real world problems?
My status won't update.
Okay, what's up? I'm not getting good reception.
Right.
All of these other things, and forgetting, like, wow, I have shelter today. I have food today. I have shoes today.
Warmth when it's snowing
warmth
outside.
when it's snowing. And so one of the things that really hits me about a lot of the Native traditions is gratitude, because they didn't take things for granted. Because they lived outside, they hunted for their food, and warmth was not guaranteed. Food was not guaranteed. Life was not guaranteed. And I think in the creature comforts of modern society, we have kind of stepped away from being grateful for the benefits and the gifts and the lifestyle that we have. So that to me is something really important about a shamanic wisdom teaching, is an orientation to a little bit more gratitude. And another piece that really hits with me is Aho Mitakuye Oyasin really translates as to all my relations. So if I feel like I'm related to Mother Earth, or I'm related to the tree, or I'm related to this animal, I'm less likely to abuse it, ignore it, or be ungrateful for it. And so there's a level of reverence that says, this is my relative. And that's a different way of, I never thought of that growing up. That wasn't something I was raised with, that orientation that everything and everyone in all of creation is your relation, your brother, your grandfather, your grandmother, or your sister. It's
beautiful. It makes me think of the quote, "Do unto others as you wish done unto yourselves," and that's to the minerals,
Yeah.
to the plants, to the animals, to the trees.
Yeah,
It's
with
to
that
really
orientation,
nourish them.
it totally puts a different spin on everything, because then then it also realizes that I'm connected to everything, then how can I ever feel alone? And so when I walk alone on the land, I'm never alone because I'm walking by the tree and I'm saying, hey brother, thanks for exhaling so that I can inhale. And I begin to attune my senses to hearing hummingbird 4 trees away. Even if I can't hear her, I say, oh, good morning, hummingbird, my relation, my relative, what a beautiful song you have. Even though it's way over there and I can't see her, I'm open to this whole family that is alive, that when I'm just on my phone, when I'm just listening to my headphones and music, I'm disconnected from all of it. I don't notice it. I'm just charging up the mountain, and I miss the opportunity to be present, to have a conversation, to receive the hummingbird's song. And when I first moved into Sedona, I was walking on the land with this gratitude for living here, like, wow, this is my backyard. And I was walking and heard a hummingbird, and I said, oh, good morning. And it was 4 trees away, and it popped up out of the tree, kind of like saying, hey, are you talking to me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to you. And it came over and was like, oh, good morning. And I said, oh, yeah, good morning. And this was this whole beautiful conversation that I was having with another being. And I was not just imagining it. I thought, oh, well, that's odd. But it isn't odd. It's actually a real conversation when I respect it as an equal. And I'm grateful. Thank you for singing to me this morning. And we proceeded to have this whole beautiful conversation, and it sung and it danced. And I'm like, wow, look at these, look at how acrobatic you are. And she was like, well, look what I can do. and like went way up and then did this soaring down. And I'm like, oh no. And it's like, no, really, here I am. And it was just so beautiful, so alive, so real, so playful. And we had this conversation for minutes and minutes. And I was like, wow, this is real. I'm not imagining this. And that has been just a beautiful dance of having conversations and being receptive to nature. And it's changed how I look and how I feel in everyday life.
Wow. Have I told you that story about the first time I met you? I came to your house,
Yep.
and we were set for a Shamangelic healing.
Yeah.
I was waiting outside. What I didn't tell you is that I drank a little too much coffee that day. And I was trying to really tap in before we spoke. I was trying to sit there in solitude and meditate and get my intention clear. And I was sitting on a bench outside of your house. And the only thing that was gaining my attention, it was starting to irritate me, was actually a dove in a tree. And the dove was just cooing over and over. And I was like, man, I'm really trying to tap in right now. And you're distracting
You're bugging me.
So I walk into your living room. We sit down. We take a deep breath. And I'm waiting, and you ask me, you say, do you hear that? And I say, no. What hear what? And I'm a little nervous. I'm like, hear what? What are we looking for? You're like, shh. And all of a sudden I noticed that the dove was still cooing, and you sat there and you let that animal guide you as to what I was seeking in my experience. And it's funny because I noticed that animal outside, but instead my shamanic lens was you're irritating me. Whereas
Get out of here.
I want you to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Coming from the shamanic lens, when you hear that animal that's singing to you, calling to you, when the wind touches your face, how can we be receptive to the message that Mother Earth is trying to send us in that moment?
Yeah, I love that story. I love that story. I didn't know
That's really
that.
Cool.
It's in the shamanic way, you're kind of having one foot in this world and one foot in the etheric real world, where you are aware of the wind, you're paying attention to the sounds, you're paying attention to the weather changing, because the natives had to be that aware because it was a matter of life and death. If a snake crossed their path, if the wind brought a message that it's time to move, you don't hesitate. It's like, hey, pack up, it's time to move, even though you might not know. They didn't be able to, weren't able to Google the weather report. So they relied on trusting the wind spirit, the animals. Wow, all of those birds are going south. There's a reason. It's not just, oh, you're annoying me. It's like, oh, the weather's changing. The snake is doing this. The coyote did that. The wind has shifted. We need to move. And that level of having one foot in the everyday world and another foot in this other reality where spirit, they would say great spirit, where our relatives can speak to us through those transmissions. And so they were always listening to that. It wasn't, I'm not listening, because like I say, their survival depended on it. And I kind of keep my ear open to, oh, the weather changed. There's a dove. Every time a dove comes in, it's because I find that I'm anxious. And my office in that place, my office sits right outside of the bird feeder. So when I'm, irritated and kind of more time-driven, and I'm in that like icky space of stress, the dove will come. And I won't hear it at the beginning, so it'll keep cooing. It'll walk in front. It'll walk in front on the railing. Hello, you wake up. And I'm like, oh, and that's why I started with this prayer, because if we're in that mindset that spirit is speaking to me through my relatives, and this relative is coming to help me, it's coming to bring a message, it's coming to interrupt a pattern where I'm going off track, or like the crow did that day, give us a warning about being safe and being aware. If we start with that awareness that all my relations are here to help me, then having one foot in that realm, then I see the dove as a brother or as a sister that's saying, hey, chillax. Take a breath, calm down. And sometimes I have to just step away and entrain with the dove's frequency and let that animal spirit like help me to entrain with that animal spirit so I can come back to center. Then I can go back into work because my frequency got off center. I got disconnected. It wasn't resonant. And that relation was coming in saying, hey, the coffee medicine, the coffee plant, overdid the coffee plant, so anxiety and nervousness has pulled you off center a little bit.
And the
so
dove
comes, hey, let's come over here and like peace, breathe, stillness, so that you can come back to center, you can come back to resonance again. So I'm kind of always keeping an ear or an eye open to what changes are happening around me. And when I'm in healing sessions, I'm like, oh, the dove came for this person, or the hummingbird came for this person, or the crow, or the blue jay. Oh, the blue jay, this person's not speaking their truth. And so I also found a whole new realm of possibilities and education and wisdom teachings when I started studying animal spirit messages and what messages do they bring?
Talk to us more about that.
Okay,
the
it's
animal
cool.
Spirits,
I know, I love it.
Like, there's so many books written on how to find your animal guide or like your spirit animal. And does this cross paths with that? Is there a way to be receptive to finding an animal in nature? Or can you be in nature and all of a sudden maybe a deer crosses your path and looks you right in the eyes? What a special moment. How do we decipher what that means to us, the message there?
I love that. Because this is a way of spirit, God, creator, source, I mean, whatever you call that. Opening to animal spirit wisdom is a way the divine creator source can move through everyday reality if you're open to expanding your lens to receive wisdom coming from an animal, because usually we just don't pay attention. And I love the opportunity to allow animals to be messengers. And so when I started studying animal spirit wisdom, Ted Andrews' book, like that's a great book on animal wisdom. And it has multiple pages of what different animals' messages are, and also what they may be, their kind of main wisdom teachings. So that's a great book. If Animal Speak is the name of the book. But there's also a lot of other great, animal spirit decks. And I also just invite you to sit with the wisdom of asking, without the books, without the cards, especially getting in touch with the animals that are in your everyday life. If you see a certain animal kind of every day in your living environment, then there's probably a reason you're living in that setting in nature. Even if you're living in a big city, like there's pigeon medicine, right?
Ants.
Ants, yeah, absolutely. Work together, hard work. And so I started kind of getting to know each of the, kind of some of the main animal spirit and what their wisdom is about. So that when an animal crosses my path, like a deer or an owl or a bear, even if it's not in physical form, but you keep seeing it on a book, you keep seeing it in a book, or you keep having a reference, or you dream about that animal, you might want to just look it up and say, what is this animal about? Or I keep seeing spiders everywhere. I keep seeing spiders everywhere. Or I have a fear of spiders. And not just what's in the book or in the animal spirit deck, but also trusting your intuition to say, gosh, well, hey brother, hey sister, why are you in my life? Instead of just shooing a bee out or trying to kill a spider, like, what message do you have for me? And
what can I learn from you?
Yeah, what can I learn from you? Oh, spider, you build a web and you do it with consciousness and awareness, and then you sit back. You do the hard work. You do it with intention. You anchor it yourself. You anchor your web, what you stand for and how to provide for yourself. You take the time to build it with awareness in a place that is the right place, and making sure like that the gaps are just right enough, and that level of diligence and attention to detail allows the spirit of the animal to just now sit back and let all of its work reap its benefit. And it can just sit back and let all of its food come to it. And I remember looking at that one time where I kept seeing a lot of spiders. I'm like, what is this all about? And I was like, wow, I need to take time to choose wisely where I put my web and what I anchor it to, and make sure it's architected in a way in which keeps me safe, supports me, and provides for me. It's not for anybody else to do that. And if I'm not anchored properly, that's on me. That's not my parents' fault. That's not my partner's responsibility. Am I building my web in a way that it will support me? I was like, shit, I'm not.
Yeah.
And I used to have a fear of spiders. Now it's like every time I see a spider, I'm like, hey, thank you for reminding me. Let me check my anchors. Am I providing for myself? Is my web have big gaps? Am I waiting for somebody else to build my web? Am I not taking care of myself? Is it not stable? So what is an animal that you see a lot, or that you're curious about? Or
It's really funny that you asked me this. This is exactly what I was thinking. I started to see the coyote over and over. Every book that I read, I would pull out cards from a deck, the coyote would come up over and over again. I started to read this book called Earth Medicine by Kenneth Meadows, and in that he talks about the astrological signs and how each sign has an animal totem. It turns out my animal totem was a coyote.
Yeah.
And in this book, he talks about the traits of the animal and how, when you understand the traits of your totem,
Right.
that it can show you your strengths and your weaknesses.
Right.
And so I started to read about the coyote, and the coyote's strength was its independence, its ability to walk alone and to howl at the moon. However, there was a weakness there, and it was being able to work in a pack mentality.
Yeah.
And coming back to that community it's acquiescing those gifts on your own as an individual, and how do I bring that back to this pack mentality where I can be conducive and kind and sharing. And when I read that, it was like, that's me.
Right in there.
That's me.
Right.
You know?
And isn't that interesting that an animal spirit crossing your path might just be for that day, for a particular message to help course correct. And when you have kind of an animal totem, it kind of stays with you for life. And we might have, a few animal totems for different phases of life.
Okay.
And that animal spirit totem is like, wow, where can I lean on my strength? And also be aware that coyote has 4 feet on the ground. It's not a winged one. It's not in the water. And it's like, how can I make sure that I'm keeping 4 feet on the ground?
Stable,
right?
Yeah.
We have these conversations.
Yeah.
Stability and groundedness, because that animal has 4 feet, not 2 feet like humans. It's like 4 feet, extra grounded.
Yeah.
And the willingness to howl at the moon and not be concerned or aware express yourself and like, oh, am I waking people up? Am I doing it right? Am I getting enough likes on Facebook?
Yeah, right.
Did people like my song?
And
And it's like, no, if I feel inspired to share this, I'm going to share it. And so that part of the coyote that just wants to express without a consideration or a care about, am I doing it right? This is how I feel. And for sure, that pack mentality of how to learn and cooperate and be in community so that we're taking care of each other and we're thriving together as a species, as a pack. And so for people that are interested in about, like your animal spirit guide, that's kind of a deep journey. And as a free gift today, for those watching, for those listening, if you go onto the website where the podcast is listed, the free gifts will be there. I'm going to include an audio guided animal spirit journey.
I told you I want to do this.
Yeah, I know. You haven't done it yet.
I've never done this, so I really want to do this.
So it's kind of like a shamanic journey into the animal spirit world to allow an animal spirit messenger to bring a message to you. And I remember when I was first doing this with Michael Harner, who's the author of the Way of the Shaman, who was one of my early teachers way back, and that book was fantastic, and all the Carlos Castaneda, like all of those, great books about shape shifting and storytelling, and I just those just really jazzed me up when I started training in shamanism, and so I was doing a training with Michael Harner years ago, and we were doing this animal spirit journey, and he says, "Okay, we're going to do an animal journey." And I had already picked my animal in my mind, this big black stallion that it was just running free and just like, nothing on its back, no bridle, bit in its mouth, just like, woo, running free on the plains. And I was sitting next to this guy, and he's like, oh yeah, I got my animal too. And he's like, I'm going to be a bear. And then Michael Harner goes, okay, now don't pick your animal. And this guy and I are like, yeah, no, we weren't doing that. We of course I wouldn't pick my animal. I'm like, of course not.
Right, but you want the big
yeah,
bad bear.
we want this.
Or whatever.
And
yeah.
it was so funny. He's like, all right, we both looked at each other like, okay, we do what the teacher says, right? And don't pick your animal and let the animal come to you. And the animal that I got during that journey, instead of this big stallion that is running wild, was this big stag that had this huge rack on its head. Where it didn't run, it stood its ground, and it's like, this is my meadow, this is my place. And at that time in life, I was trying to run from something. And what that animal spirit journey brought me to is to just stand. You don't have to run from anything. This is your meadow, this is your territory, this is your turf. You own it, and you don't have to fear anything. And like the way the animal carried itself was so regal and so empowered. Not that the black stallion doesn't have its medicine too, but it wasn't the medicine I needed at that time. I needed to stand my ground and just own who I was and claim my territory and not flee. Because there's a sense of running from something which is different than freedom. And so, and the guy next to me, he got an earthworm instead of a bear. He's like, oh shit,
He's like,
you know.
"Man, I picked a bear, I got an earthworm.
I
Come
got
on
an
now.
earthworm.
Can we do
He's
it
like,
again?
How unsexy
we need
is
to
that?
restart. Something went wrong.
You know, how unsexy is that? And so, you know, when we're talking about animal spirit medicine, it's something that will leave you more whole. And it's not always what we expect or want, but what we need, just like you were like, screw it, dove, get out, shoo.
Yeah.
Like, it's not what you wanted necessarily at the moment, but it is what you needed.
It's right in your face. It's speaking right to you, and you're saying, hey, hush, coffee's speaking right now.
Yeah, exactly. You're
Leave me
bothering
alone.
me. And so sometimes we're not allowing that in. So animal spirits are a great way.
What else?
Yes.
What else? Let's go over some other ones. Animal spirits, can you talk to us about other ways we can access these shamanic teachers, be it nature or connection? How can we access
So
other
animals
ways?
are one for sure. The elements is another, because this is the opportunity to really look at water, air, earth, and fire and how to balance them. And sometimes we're too fiery, go all the time. Sometimes we're too emotional.
Pisces,
Too water,
fluid,
like crying,
we need
emotional.
someone to give us some fire and say, hey, let's look at that.
Yeah, so the water element. So sometimes, if you're looking to be a little bit more confident and assertive and fiery and bringing your light out, that's where we might invoke the sun or do sunrise meditations that says, hey, great spirit of, Tata Inti, which is like Father Sun, hey, help ignite this fire within me in a way that doesn't singe or burn me, or in a way that doesn't singe or burn other people. Like, how can I alchemize my fire element? So that's where we might summon Tata Inti or Father Sun, and the Egyptians would, Akhenaten was known for sun gazing and sun praising as a messenger, and so that's an example of using sun, or the fire element itself, the transmuting power of fire, that it can transmute fear into faith, or density into levity.
Wow.
Or darkness into light. And so that's where we might use the fire element. The water element, we want to make friends with the water element. We are all mostly water. And how to be more flexible, how to be more adaptive, how to leverage fluidity and honor our emotions, that sometimes we're a little bit more sensitive. And when we stuff our emotions, then here comes this tsunami. And those little waves turn into bigger waves that turn into big tsunamis that become more destructive. So the water element, I know that when I'm having, it's often when I'm having sessions with a lot of people, oftentimes it'll rain, especially when people are tapping that emotional part. And so many times, I can't tell you how many times when I've been doing workshops or a women's retreat or a women's circle that might be more inclined to access their emotional body, that here comes the rain, and I just know it. And even though if it's not scheduled that day, and I'm like, oh, here it comes, that rain starts, and I know that the rain is going to come here too.
Wow.
Or here comes the rain, and the rain element, the skies will cry along with us, and we start to realize, wow, we're connected to the elements. So the water element, I think, is really powerful. Flexibility, surrender, purification. Wind. Love that wind element when you see really a gusty day, like, wow, this is the winds of change. This is not a little breeze, like it's shaking things up, and it's time for the winds of change to let go of something. And do you remember what else about the wind that day that we went to Shaman's Cave?
We're in the cave. I remember you guided me in asking a question personally, and I was sitting there and I was asking you, how do I receive the answer? And I kept asking you, and all of a sudden you said, what are you feeling right now? And I said, well, there's a gust of wind on my face when I'm asking this question. And you said, we're in a cave right now. We're in the back of this cave. How are you feeling wind?
How is the wind
coming
getting in here?
from the left side of your cheek here? We're in the back of a cave. You said, listen, what is that telling you? And it was so clear to me that when I was saying, is this correct? All of a sudden the wind would hit me and say, yes, Ryan, yes, listen, what do you want me to do? I'm smacking you on the face right now. And then when you taught me to listen for that, it was so clear to me, and it was so profound to be like, oh yeah, Great Spirit's giving me that answer right here. I just got to listen to it.
Right.
Oh,
Isn't
so
that delicious?
amazing.
Because you're like, what is wind? Like, it's not possible for this wind to be coming.
back of this
We're
cave.
20 feet back into the cave, and it's got a hood on it. You know, it was a pretty secluded cave. And so when the wind comes, that to me, and different elders and teachers have shared with me that, oh, those are your ancestors. Those are your angels kissing you on the cheek. Those loved ones that are on the other side. When the wind comes and wraps your cheek, or, you know, kind of wraps around you, that's the way your angels, your loved ones, your ancestors that are on the other side can come through the veil and embrace you, kiss you, and caress you. It's actually quite palpable. And so when the wind comes and kisses your cheek, that's that clairsentient feeling of, oh, this is my prayer being answered. Because we might be waiting for this big vision or this loud sound or this booming voice, when actually the wind is doing this the whole time, saying, I'm here for you, you're not alone, I love you. And like, allow that to be a cuddly embrace, especially from the loved ones, angels or ancestors that are on the other side. So the wind element is how Spirit speaks. So that's another one. And then, of course, earth. You know, the earth element, it has its own frequency. That's why taking our shoes off, that's why calming the mind, being still, that's why we went to the cave that day, so that we can go into the earth itself in the form of a cave, which is like Mother Earth's womb. How can we go back into the earth and be held by her? If we talk Aho Mitakuye Oyasin, we're talking about the great spirit of Mother or Grandmother Earth. And how can we just be held by that maternal presence that maybe we didn't always feel that from our mother or our grandfather or grandmother or the women in our life? How can we recreate that by just walking barefoot or laying on Mother Earth or going into a cave and just being still and being that little embryo that, you know, inside Mother Earth's, you know, womb, or a mother's womb, or the cosmic womb, and feel the innocence and be held and be safe, and then be ready to birth again from that when we're ready. So those are ways in which we can tap the elements for wisdom.
Wow.
Which was a profound day. That was great. We got a lot out of
It
that.
was so profound. When I went home, I was receptive to this.
Yeah.
And I would go on walks on my lunch break at work. And it started to recur to me that I always would find feathers everywhere. I literally found a feather sticking out of tree bark
Like,
that somehow,
what's it doing
like,
here?
it's in my face. Like, hey, I'm walking by this tree and there's a feather stick. My parents know this too. I always have feathers. I'm always finding them. So I said, what does this mean? So I started to research, what do the feathers mean? And there, in the Native American tradition, the feather was the bird spirit. It was the closest animal to the heavens, to great
Spirit, yeah.
the Great Spirit. And so when I found those feathers, it was telling me, hey, you're on your path, you're being guided, you're sending those prayers off, and your ancestors are watching over you. And so now every time I find a feather, to me, it's a totem of good luck, and I'm on my path. And
Affirmation.
it's an affirmation, exactly. I
Right.
love it.
And that's big, because you could walk right by it. That is just being receptive to these maybe non-traditional symbols and signals, whether it's an animal or a feather or the wind, that is kind of trying to give you this repetitive message. And if we're looking for it in another way, we miss it. And so this is just kind of, all of these things that we're talking about today can go in, intersect with whatever your beliefs already are. Whether you're Christian, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Buddhist, this can just connecting to a whole nother lens of the way God or Allah speaks to you. It just can add to that. They called it Great Spirit. You may call it God, whatever it is. Universe, higher self, your angels, whatever. that's how we can do it. And another way we can do it is just to sit with one of these teachers or one of these relatives and just be curious, just to ask. So when I've had my, many vision quests over the years of my training and over the years of my healing, is many of those vision quests happen just with sitting quiet and staying with, for multiple days, one tree. One tree, that's it. 5 days silence, no, just water, and just being a humble student that says, what can you teach me? Relative, what can you teach me? And the obvious ones with tree, okay, you have roots and you've got branches. Okay, I did that, it's been 5 minutes. What else you got? I'm going to be here for 5 days. Oh, shit.
Right.
And it invites you to go deeper and deeper and deeper and to begin to feel it, smell it, taste it, become it. And the more you sit with something, and not just the shallow first questions, the first answers, but what does that really mean? How can I apply it? Where am I not putting my roots down? Where have roots been broken, or where do I need to go deeper now because I want to grow taller? Where has fire scorched my bark? In other words, where has there been pain or trauma? How do I need to heal that? It's still alive. It didn't die from that trauma. And it just was this deep, deep black hole of, rabbit hole of message. And if I just implemented all of those messages, I would be golden for life. And so just sitting with one plant, a daisy, a rose, a tree, a mountain. I love just sitting with mountains in this home where I'm at right now. That mountain over there is Mount Wilson. It is one of our biggest, tallest plateaus here in Sedona. It's the wisdom keeper for me. I love being in the presence. Over there, that one over that side is, I'm in this triangulation of that mountain and then also Thunder Mountain. These are wisdom keepers. These are the masculine element of really deep, deep ancient wisdom. These are a couple 100 million years old. And they have the wisdom of endurance and persistence and steadiness. And could I learn from that? They've survived ice ages. And so we were talking to a mountain that day.
Yes.
Right? We paused. You're like, let's get to the cave. I'm like, hold up. We're going to pause right here because the wind just came from that direction. That ancestor is asking us to pause and have a conversation with him. And you're like, what? So what came from the mountain that day?
So you told me to look at the mountain. I had no idea what to expect. And there was 3 humps on the mountain, 3 peaks on the mountain. And, I came to you because I was looking for some guidance originally. And when I looked at these mountains, I started to feel that it's the polarity of life, that we have this feminine receptive side where we need to sit quietly and receive a message, and that one of these mountains represented that. And then we need that other contrast and polarity, that yin and yang. And that was the masculine of, hey, now we've sat and listened, now we need to stand up and act. And I felt that pull of that putting plans into action. Lay the roots, put the plan into action. That was that masculine. And then there was the middle path, and that was finding the complementary path that embraces that feminine of receptivity and that masculine of productivity. And it was so profound. This just came to me by looking at a mountain. Like, how do I just look at what people say, that's a rock? Ryan, that's a rock, dude. I looked at that, and all of a sudden this message just spoke to me so profoundly that it was like, okay, there's something to this.
Right, and I might sit there and get a totally different message, and neither of us is wrong. Because it's the way the mountain is speaking to you and what aspect it's inviting you to bring forward or embody, or where you might need more courage or groundedness. We might look at the same mountain and see, feel, and hear different messages because we need to hear it differently.
Message.
And so inviting you, those of you that are listening, those of you that are watching, what nature elements are around you? Is there a big tree? Is there a big mountain? Is there a river? Is there an ocean? Is there a lake? Is there a field of flowers? And where can you just be a curious student that sits humbly with this relative and says, hey, what can you teach me? What can I learn from you? You've lived here longer than I do. Most likely you'll live here after I'm gone. Or maybe this little flower blossoms and it's gone. How can you teach me about how fleeting the nature of life is and how to just shine my little blossom and then, you know, to be courageous, to just, you know, be a sunflower and then that's it. Whether that's a butterfly, whether that is a tree, you know, what elements of nature are around you where you can be a humble student and ask those questions. What wisdom teaching or what can I learn from you today? And just sit with your journal and ask another question and then ask another question. And how can I relate to this in my life? How can I implement this? In what way can I implement? Just sit, close your eyes and be quiet. So those are some just, you know, you can do that on your own. You can totally do that on your own.
I want to share something that you showed me earlier. It was so profound. And it is the 10 Native American commandments.
Yes, these can go with the other commandments that you live life by, but these they're just so juicy and sweet.
So profound.
And we're going to put this we're going to actually include this. There'll be a link to it on the page, on the website for this podcast, so people can get it. You're going to get your copy. Everyone will get their copy.
This is quality stuff. This is like refrigerator every morning.
Yeah,
meditate with it. Beautiful, beautiful. So I want to walk through these. The 10 Native American commandments. The earth is our mother. Care for her. Honor all your relations. Open your heart and soul to Great Spirit. All life is sacred. Treat all beings with respect. Take from the earth what is needed and nothing more. Do what needs to be done for the good of all. Give consistent thanks to Great Spirit for each new day. Speak the truth, but only of good in others.
Ooh.
Beautiful, right? Follow the rhythms of nature. Rise and retire with the sun.
It's a big one.
That could be a whole episode.
Yeah, right there.
That's beautiful. Lastly, enjoy life's journey, but leave no tracks.
Isn't this juicy? You know, because I think with the state of, you know, and thank you for saying, hey, let's bring this into the podcast today, because I think in the state with what's happening with our Earth and our planet, that if we could embrace a few more of these things, you know, is to take only from Mother Nature what we need, to not hoard, to not waste. It could shift the way we are relating to the planet right now in a more harmonious relationship with this relation, because she does provide we are in a codependent relationship with her and she is with us, and if we could be more respectful, just one of those, just to focus on one of those each week or each month, or to share those with your children, to put it on the refrigerator that says, hey, are we leaving no trace? Meaning with our waste, what we're putting into landfill, what we're putting into our rivers, that goes into our oceans. I think just that one is really delicious about how we can be more sustainable and respectful with the environment. So there's going to be more episodes about shamanic wisdom, because each of these we could go on forever, but we respect your time. Where can people find you, Ryin?
Awesome. If you want to get in contact with me, you can go to dietorliveit.com. On all social media platforms, you can find me on Diet or Live It, or my name, Ryin Cornett. You can find me there as well. What about you? You said you had some free gifts, please.
Yes. So on the website, shamangelichealing.com, you can go to the landing page under podcasts. This particular podcast will definitely have 3 free gifts. We're going to give you that handout of the Aho Mitakuye Oyasin Lakota Sioux Prayer. We're also going to make sure that you have these Native American 10 Commandments, so that you can print that out and love by that, live by that. And also an animal spirit journey. You know, that one that I recorded, which is, you know, we're going to do that today. Yeah. We're recording actually on the last day of the year, which is just so auspicious that it's in Sedona.
Beautiful.
And so I am on social media platforms as Anahata Ananda. Check the links below or on the webpage for the free gifts. Know that I'm here as a shamanic healer and soul guide to really help you on your journey to connect deeper to the wisdom that is within you. I want to thank you, Ryin. You're so curious, you're so passionate, you're so committed and devoted to learning and expanding, and it's so much fun as always.
Thank you so much.
To be with you on the land, in the living room, and in life. Thank you for bringing your wisdom and your curiosity.
Thank you for sharing.
To today.
Welcome in.
So thank you, audience, for joining us. We respect your time, and really, if you loved this podcast, if there was any juicy tools here, any wisdom that really helped you, please like it, share it with someone else, and go on to Stitcher or iTunes. Give us a great feedback. Give us a great review. That helps us reach more people. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and go out and let shamanic wisdom nourish you in some beautiful way. Thank you, and Aho Mitakuye Oyasin.
Aho Mitakuye Oyasin.